Hey, how's it going? I'm Jason, and I'm going to be taking you through this Darth Maul piece where I take it from this to this. Stay tuned. Okay, right. Let's jump in and let's go through this. So, started out from a sphere, and unfortunately, I forgot to capture that beginning bit. And just blocking out the general body. What I'm trying to do is get a bit of like a clay mannequin. Go in with just the general larger forms. So what I'm thinking about here are maybe some of the secondary forms, or some of the larger primitives. But generally, what I'll try and do is try and get everything blocked out in like spheres and circles, or at least very close to. You can see I'm just pulling bits out and extending bits and just remeshing things together. I knew that the legs were going to be separate, so to do the cyborg legs, so thought I'd get those off real fast. So here we're moving on to doing the hands, and I'm just going to do one finger and then just kind of duplicate that around the hand just to save time. I did something here which I don't usually do, which is I didn't separate the hand from the forearm, which later on comes to bite me in the ass a little bit, but we live and we learn. Yeah, so here you can see I'm having a bit of difficulty just getting the size right. Yeah, which if that was all separate, you could probably do it a bit easier without affecting the forearm and stuff. And yeah, just going through again, finding the secondary forms on each part now, looking at the gesture, placement, proportions, and anytime you kind of get stuck on an area, it's always good to just go back through your checklist. Same here again, so after you've got the general forms and stuff, you just breaking up each of those parts individually and then just doing the same exact thing. I had a couple of references for this, but most of it at this point is just from memory. You can see I'm just concepting out some of the alternative stuff for Darth Maul. And I don't know what happened to the window here. For some reason it started recording differently, but again doing the exact same thing to the face that I had done with the body. So just getting your general forms in and then trying to push and pull and just find the proportions within those forms. Not really worrying about anatomy too much at this point. Any anatomy that I am putting in is just your like typical skull. I find if you can get the skull underneath, all the other forms kind of fall into place. There's no real expression on this. It's just a very generic face at the minute, which is, in my opinion, the best way to go. If you can establish like a general face and get that looking right, you can then just shape it and work on the design and change the proportions. Although it is fun to you can do it the other way as well and start with a broader design sense, let's say doing something like a dwarf, and then go back in and rework the anatomy on top of that. And again, so I thought that face wasn't working too well. So anytime something isn't working for me, I'll generally soften the whole object, and then I'll go back in and start to redefine the forms and just rediscover some of those planes of the area. But I'm a lot happier with how this face was going. I think the other one was a bit too stylized. This one's got a bit more. I'll say that, and then I block in some really sharp cheeks. But yeah, you can see the amount of time that's spending on the face here. When it comes to doing ears, there's lots of different ways. You can either like sculpt it on the original one, or you can extrude it and extract the mesh like this, or you can append a sphere and then bring that in. There's lots of different ways in Zbrush to do the same job. It's whatever you feel works best at the time. personally, I quite enjoy just extracting objects and then just slapping it on. It feels a bit like working with clay, working traditionally. So again, just spending time on that face. That face is going to be the focal point, and yeah, now we're on to the legs. So concepting these legs were hard because I'm not usually doing hard surface or anything of this kind of stature, but you'll see me playing around with a lot of shapes, just trying to get some kind of idea, something that looked cool, really. It's probably not lore accurate or follows any kind of design of that world building. I know within the world, I think springs was like part of the world building. Nothing has springs or like zippers, so everything's like done up with buttons and pistons and stuff, which is kind of cool. Not really something that you think about when you're not world building, I guess. But yeah, you can see doing the exact same thing, just kind of drawing on top and finding forms and shapes, and if I find a shape that looks cool, I'll try and kind of replicate that in different ways across the form. Also, when it comes to doing some of these smaller forms like this, I'll try to follow the shape and follow the flow of the area. That seems to work quite well. Yeah, just getting carried away here, just doing some of those secondary forms. I'll probably come to like smooth all this out or H-polish. In terms of what brushes I'm using, I keep it fairly simple. Just standard and clay brush mostly. So that's a cool little thing to create bandages. So if you duplicate whatever mesh you're using, and then you use the slice tool, just slice it up in a bunch of different ways, and then go to the edge loops and create a bunch of edge loops. It'll kind of separate and give you these bandages. Then you can just pull and push them and work them around the form and give it a bit more of an organic and natural look. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about here. Just if the arm was wrapped up, what direction would things be going? Things would be overlapping, things would be like showing through from underneath. I had quite a good reference. There was like multiple different layers. Doing the eyes quick, simple, just subdivide and then mask and then just paint it on. Just to help with the likeness. I find sometimes when you've not got the pupils in on the eyes, it's kind of hard to see like how high or low the eyelid is, and you'll come to see that there's just a whole range of problems that I now discover with the eyes, and for a good part of this he's a bit box-eyed. Horns, again, just make one, duplicate it across the mesh, and just arrange those however you like. It's probably not very lore accurate at the back, and you can make it into an IMM brush, then you could just drag it out on the surface. That would work as well. Going back to the eyes, because again, didn't look right, still don't look right, and then eventually just finding some kind of middle ground where it doesn't look cross-eyed. Here's something, just integrating other objects into other objects, so making sure there's some kind of readable definition between the connection of the skin and those horns. You can see now I've just readjusted the whole cranium. It's a part that anytime I do portraits I seem to struggle with getting that kind of upper cranial mass correct, and you usually have to go back, either adjust the face height or adjust the cranium height. The tattoos were a pretty fun one to do, so I didn't go with the traditional Darth Maul tattoo designs. This was mostly based on like 80s tribal that you used to find in the really, really bad tattoo books that were amazing. And yeah, so trying to just add that kind of spiky look to everything. And again, I know it's not law based, I know it's not correct, but at this point it's just all about having fun. And yeah, that's why we create stuff, to have fun. And you'll see the reason why I'm doing this bit with poly paint rather than like masking and stuff is because if you do it with black poly paint, you can then mask by intensity afterwards, which is what I'll do later on, just to get some of the just like definition and stuff like that. I know that I went and did the back. I wasn't sure if I was going to show the back of the character or not. In the end, I don't think I ended up using it, but it's quite nice to just carry on playing around with those forms. And that it's the same exact thing, so the same mindset for creating the body is the same for just drawing the forms. You're looking for just the flow and the gesture, and making sure everything just kind of moves around the object quite nicely. You can also see that I blocked in some of the like stomach belt back there, just to kind of get an idea of what it might look like. Yeah, moving on to doing the face tattoos. I don't know if how correct this is, but I know that Darth Maul had his tattoos done in a bit more of a painful way. I think the Emperor wanted him to prove himself. It's a fun little lore fact there. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. I am a Star Wars nerd, but I'm not enough to have read the books and stuff like that. I really enjoy the movies. And you know what, doing the tattoos on this guy, like the original design's insane. I think the original design for Darth Maul was done by Ian McCain, I think. But yeah, this I really do love the designs. Going back through, just simplifying the eyes. Oh, the material that's on the eyes as well to kind of give it that sheen is a toy plastic material. Now you can see, going back, just redoing the belts around the stomach. And I believe I just extracted from the area and then slice tool, got that like flat slice, and then Z-remeshed, and then creased edge, and then probably curved strap, and then use that to like follow the creases. Then I'm going to do a similar thing that I did with the fingers, where I'll just make one belt and then duplicate that across. I had a bit of trouble finding like a design for the buckle. I didn't want it to be just your standard belt buckle. I thought having a circle would be quite cool. Yeah, and again, just making sure that there's an interaction between the objects. So squeezing that bit of belt. I don't know how it functions, but making sure there's some kind of interaction in between the different parts. Again, just extract, and I think I've found another option there, or maybe it was extract and then polish, and that gave a nice bit. So now you can see that I've kind of got rid of a lot of the noise that was on the legs, and simplified them a little bit, and now we're going back in and finding those larger forms. And what's funny is, like, once you find those larger forms and the bigger shapes, and you then separate those like mentally, and you start making smaller shapes on top, it's just about following the process, and you will come to find you'll end up with a better design, even if you just keep it simple. Because from there, like, complexity can always be added, but it's that you need that simplicity to kind of build on top of it. And I think the human brain kind of likes the simplicity at times as well. It does benefit from doing it. I think if something's a little bit too complex, like, it becomes kind of illegible, and you lose a lot of the power of the shapes. So keeping some of the like big and larger areas quite plain, and then just going in and adding details in the smaller areas gives quite a nice like contrast. But yeah, there's so many iterations that I ended up doing of these legs. This was kind of a playing point for this project of cool, I get to do some like hard surface stuff inside ZBrush, and it is really fun when you find a shape that you like and you can just kind of move things around. So you can see the brushes that I'm mostly using there is H Polish, Trim Adaptive, Trim Dynamic, and probably the clay brush, and occasionally use the clip curve tool. That's quite handy as well, especially when you're just like taking down some of the edges, or the curve slice tool as well. Both of those work really well. And then the standard brush for doing any kind of trimming or like pulling areas out, or like putting the small like vent indentations. But the H polish is definitely the one for this kind of stuff. It gets really like smooths that surface. That's another reason why I added this. I think it's the green metallic matte cap, and I'm using that to smooth the surface, is because you can actually see if there's any kind of bumps or overlapping bits. You wouldn't get it on metal, like, or any kind of like really hard surface area. You can see I've started to just redefine some of the bits now. So this bit, I believe it's using it took me quite a few tries. I haven't really perfected the way of using this yet, but the polygroup it, I think it's called. You go to Z plugins and polygroup it. So yeah, you just draw around all the bits that you want to separate, and then if you're lucky enough, it'll separate it into different polygroups. You can see the jumping video there, because it took me quite a while to get it right, and finally it was just a lot of the same thing. Once something was separated, I'd then split mask or split hidden, and then I'd give it edge loops, and that would give it some kind of thickness, and then go back in. So just creating, I think, some of the like circular options. This bit was completely unnecessary, I think. You could do this in like Maya or Blender or whatever. I'm very much the type of person that when tools are in hand, I don't like to let go of them. So it's a bit of a break for me if I end up going into another software, although sometimes needed. You don't really want to become a ZBrush cowboy, even though I do try to do everything in ZBrush. It's such a fantastic bit of software. And you can see me there just plugging in a bit of the hole, because I couldn't get something to fit there. It's like, I'll just extrude a bit of mesh and just chunk it in there, because nobody's going to see it. Now, if you're doing like a game ready character, it's probably not best to do that. But I knew that this wasn't going to be taken to full standard. This was just going to be as a like ZBrush to Photoshop render. And now moving on to doing the lightsaber. This was arguably one of the funnest parts, because you just put reference on and it's just a load of cylinders just stacked on top of each other. Then using the radial symmetry, just pulling the edges out, using that Z modeler tool to kind of mask and pull things out, and then trying for some kind of alphas there. Again, same thing, mask, duplicate. Like when something's masked, if you use the gizmo and you control and move it, it'll duplicate and copy that part. And yeah, just using those same bits that I've created to just mask and duplicate those across the object and save some time. And the way that it was mirrored there was just mirroring, but in the Y direction, and then just adjusting and moving things around. Probably not the easiest way, but it worked. You could do it as well, going across the across the x-axis, that would work as well. Yeah, finding just some kind of alphas and just adding some kind of interest to it. So here's the hard part, so making sure you get the sizing right on the lightsaber in comparison to the rest of him. And now just going back through that like tertiary refined path, blocked in a couple of simple shapes, and then just spraying a general alpha, adding some asymmetry across the top, and then just redefining some of those areas. You can see that I've masked the poly paint there and then just like inflated it, and then I did that across the body and just redefined a lot of those areas. Now we're just in T-Pose Master and Z plugins, and this was another hard point as well. You'll usually find that any faults in your anatomy or any faults in like the gesture and the proportions and stuff all become really apparent when you start to try and pose things. So like the hands were too big on this, which then got sorted out at some point, but also just how I had done the forearms and stuff by keeping them separate to the biceps. That created a bit of an issue. I could pose it a little bit easier, but there wasn't that kind of interaction. And yeah, I'm not gonna take you through this whole like bending absolute every single finger, but yeah, that's the case. Just transpose, mask, and you're just doing that for every bit that you want to move. And it's a long process, but you know, it's easier than I guess like rigging at this point, or if you're just doing it as a concept sketch. Like you can see there with the fully closed fist, it's not really the correct size, and like the thumb's a little bit broken, so I just kind of push and pull that and kind of hide it and chuck it to one side and disguise it. And sometimes that's like maybe the art of not being so perfect with something like this, is it just needs to look good enough. I'm sure there's like anatomical experts that could go through this and like absolutely pull it apart, but it is what it is. It came out okay. Again, just doing the same thing, like taking reference of your own hand and holding something and then just going through. And I quite like him having his little pinky finger up. Maybe he fights with like a delicate pinky. But yeah, going through trying to sort out the arms and basically just fix all the anatomy at this point. I went on to do another pose from the other side as well, and that like brought out even more flaws in just how the hands and arms look and stuff. All in all though, I think there's a nice like gesture to the arms, and that is that. That's how it's gone. And that was Darth Maul, done in Zbrush and rendered in Photoshop. Hopefully you learned something from it. If you did, sweet. If not, hopefully new content will help you out in the future. This is something that I'm planning on expanding on and doing more projects and sharing, and eventually maybe streaming the process and doing characters that I grew up loving. So characters like Prince of Persia, and like Destroy All Humans and Krypton and stuff like that. Just really nerding out and just making some fun characters. All right, take it easy. Peace.